Good Thursday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald with you live on a very special early bird. We're always grateful to have old friends with us. Emphasis on the old. Brad, there's rumors that Abraham Lincoln is actually turning over in his grave, that Johnson's still around after all these years, and he's not. But anyway, Brad Johnson, the one and only, with us tonight, former CIA operative, friend of the Mac Files, and as we always like to affectionately say it, the protector of the Elvis guy behind the garage there. But anyway, it's so good to see you, man. We had a little tech issue last time, but we're back at the Bat Cave tonight, so things should be a lot better with your volume. And so good to see you. How you been? Let me just check on you before we get into the new stuff. How you been doing? Good to see you tonight.
Doing well, staying out of trouble. I do want to remind you that I know where you live. And, these old comments, they kind of piss me off. And let me add on top of that, Chris. I don't know if anyone who's already listening listened last time or the time before or the time before or the time before. But every single time you promise me that the next interview you're going to have some sort of spy music bumper song to put on, and you've yet to do it, not once. Not once. Out of all those times.
I will go to bed tonight with the thought, Brad Johnson knows where I live, and I need to get that spy bumper song on for the next time that he comes on. So that will be. I owe you 2 steaks. As I told you before the show came on, I owe you 2 steaks now, and so we'll definitely do that. Yes, sir.
That I want you to understand. That's not a threat or anything, but gas explosions do take place all the time. So. We
got
great idea that you get that song done.
Folks, Johnson and I are kidding. We got crazies out there that will probably say something stupid about this show, but that's okay. I like it. Hey, it is good to see you. And I wanted to talk to you. I brought you on tonight. I'm so grateful. It was a short notice. I asked you to come on tonight. I'm grateful you answered the bell. IntelReform.org is website, folks. One of the best websites out there. It really is. I wanted to get your take on this China trip. There's a lot of indication that Trump went over to China. Had our buddy James Akers on Monday night or Tuesday night, and we talked for a long time, and he brought up an excellent point, and I wanted to run it by you. Nixon was the first American president that really broke the ice, in modern times at least, with the Chinese. And, he caught a lot of flack from it. From, of all places, the right, because they were thinking he was selling out the country to the communists and all this stuff. And it really turned out to be one of the most, I thought, I was just a young kid when all that went down. I had no idea what was going on. But looking back on it now, it was a smart move by Nixon. And it really put the U.S. on a place that we could, be strategically straight up with the Chinese. And we've had these left-wing politicians, Brad, through the years that have given the Chinese so much advantage over us. And, it's been awful. And Trump has sort of put a stop to that. And I think by him going over there and staring down Xi in his own backyard, and, it's very cordial. I looked at all the videos this morning. I watched I was really proud of the way the Chinese treated him. I don't trust the Chinese past his computer monitor. But I do believe that maybe we can make some progress and perhaps get some help from our ardent enemy. Because I would be fair to ask you the question: do you think they're our top enemy? I mean, most experts I've talked to in the intelligence field say China is our number one threat. You've said that on our program many times, that China is a huge threat. But do you feel like this is all blather by Xi, or do you think that we're going to actually see any fruit from this Chinese trip? I mean, I felt like that the optics of it at least looked good today. I guess the proof's going to be in the pudding later, whether they follow through with what they promised.
There's just no question that China is the greatest long-term threat to U.S. national security. I've never heard a convincing argument of anything else being a greater threat. Maybe I've heard some arguments that there's other things that are equal threats, but nothing. I don't buy any of that stuff. They're the greatest long-term threat to national security. The trip itself, probably a lot of the negotiations would have taken place up front. They would have teams talking about what's going to happen there. So any agreements or anything like that were mostly laid on in advance. The talks, it's always good to have that, even though the groundwork has been laid, and everybody's sort of agreed what they're going to agree to and what they're not going to mention, and who's going to be at the dinners. All that stuff is laid on in advance. But nevertheless, to have the two top guys sit down, look eye to eye, and chat back and forth, even though it's through translators, which is a little bit clumsy, those are useful meetings. And you can look the other guy in the eye and test his mettle and all that kind of thing. So, and Trump has an advantage over this because he's a very level sort of trudge along sort of guy. He's made great strides, done great stuff. I think he's appreciated within the leadership circles of China and all that for being not a dummy. That he's been very effective at what he does, not in our interest, of course, but he's been very effective. But I think he's a little bit afraid of Trump. And I think he's a little bit afraid of Trump because Trump's a little bit of a wild card. He just doesn't know what he's going to do. And you take a guy like Biden. Biden doesn't know what he's going to do, but you would know what his government is going to do, which is not much against China. And even Nixon and people like that. Nixon was pretty steady Eddie. He didn't just wildly go off on stuff.
That's
And
exactly
Trump
right.
is not afraid to take projects on that are a big deal. I mean, going after Iran certainly is point number one on that. It's on everybody's table right now to consider. So I think Xi's very careful. I looked at some of the wording of things he said. Taiwan, make no mistake, that's number one to them. And if Trump said to them, look, I'll tell you what, we'll throw Taiwan under the bus if you'll throw Iran under the bus.
Right.
He'd be going, oh yeah, let's do that. He's going to agree to that immediately. I think that is, if you look at the wording that Xi gave on that, he said, oh, yes, if this is not handled carefully, this could be a serious problem.
I saw that.
Well,
I heard that. Yes.
Yeah, he's been way more belligerent in the past over things like that and talk tough and all that. There is the potential. I wouldn't be surprised if my good buddy mentioned something to you the other night, but there is a chance that with all the distractions of Iran, that China would consider taking advantage of that to go into Taiwan.
Yes, we talked about that. We did. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the fleet is otherwise occupied. This would be a Navy sort of thing from our perspective, and a lot of the fleet is busy in the Straits of Hormuz and things like that. I think they've got 3 aircraft carriers there now, which is a sizable chunk of U.S. sea power. So it would make a certain level of sense to do it now, but I don't think they'll do it with Trump. So I just don't, because they wouldn't know what he would do, If Biden were in power, I think they would give serious consideration to it. But Biden wouldn't have gone into Iran either. So
maybe, and I agree with everything you just said. I want you to talk a minute, if you don't mind, because our audience may be listening to this tonight, and we may have some people out there that may not quite grasp why Taiwan is so important to China. And I have to say, I remember, I know this is going to reveal my age. I remember Reagan in the election year of 1980, this issue came up, even in the election with him and Carter, because Carter had basically given a nod to the Chinese if he got elected, that he would allow them to do whatever to Taiwan. And Reagan was adamant about it. He said, we will protect Taiwan in their interests. So this goes back 40 years. This is not some thing, because people hear Taiwan all the time. But why do you think, and maybe you can help us all understand why Taiwan is so important to the Chinese, because, Brad, it's just an island. I mean, when you get down to it, it's just an island in the Pacific Ocean over there. And but every time that Chinese-American relations, we're talking like we talked this weekend with the last couple of days in China, they're always throwing that up. And maybe you can help explain to our audience tonight why it's so important to them and why we need to defend it. Because I do believe Trump is right. I wouldn't throw Taiwan under the bus, because is it not what we did in Vietnam? I mean, we basically let China, Vietnam was the same issue. We could have let Vietnam go to the communists, and God knows where we'd be. And granted, that war was a disaster, not because of the soldiers. It was a disaster because of these bureaucrats, including Lyndon Johnson, a good Democrat, doing stupid stuff from the White House, and Nixon was smart enough to bring the boys home. I don't want to go down that weed right now, but it really, to me, is paralleling because if you let the communists take over that island, they're not going to stop at Taiwan, are they?
No, that is actually a very fine point to make, and you asked me to go back a little bit on it, why it's so important, and that is one of the reasons it's important to us. But this goes all the way back to World War II, and the fighting started there, and you had the nationalist Chinese fighting the communist Chinese, and the communist Chinese won. And so they chased the nationals. They kept retreating back, retreating back, retreating back, and finally ended up on the shore with the island of Formosa behind them. And they all picked up and went over to that island, and that's Taiwan,
Taiwan, exactly.
and that's where they're at. So that was a battle, from back in the 1930s and 40s when they were already starting to square off against each other, the different factions. But the communists won, and they've always said there's one China. And so this has been a policy that's been fought out since the very beginning. Initially, after the end of World War II, nationalist China represented all of China in the United Nations, and they were on the National Security Council, all that kind of stuff. They finally was, they recognized China as China, and Taiwan is now a separate country, although everybody agrees there's one China, but nobody agrees how exactly that is set up. How is there one China when there's Taiwan as a separate country? I personally, I would say Taiwan has a problem in that they're not recognized by that many countries.
That's a great point.
So it's a little bit of a little bit of a problem for them for trade and treaties and things like that. So personally, I would say, well, why do we have a one China policy? Let's face it, after nearly 100 years, damn it, there's two Chinas. Let's just grow up and be big boys and deal with it. And that'd be kind of my take on the whole thing. And now China would just blow a cog, but fine. Why do I care if the Chinese are pissed at me? They hate me already anyway. So I don't care. I would, and what are they going to do? Just fire off nukes? I mean, the situation isn't changed by what you call it, So I don't think there'd be a huge reaction. I mean, there'd be a huge reaction in the political sense. They'd be very angry. But I would use that as a negotiating tool. That's some of the stuff I would go over to China and say, they're saying, oh, you're doing this all wrong in Iran. It's to be really, why is there only a one China policy? Why don't we have a two China policy?
Right. In all your dealings with these Chinese, I know that they're experts at being double-tongued and saying one thing to the camera and then going back and stabbing us in the back. That's just the way the Chinese. And look, they're doing their best to undermine us with cybersecurity, the threats, all these things that they're doing to undermine our republic. And you're right about Z and Trump. Look, I think that I don't think he's ever met somebody like Trump.
Agreed.
He ran over Joe Biden. He ran over Barack Obama. But when Trump came into office, and we had a hearing on the Hill yesterday, and I'm going to get your take on this about the Wuhan the Wuhan virus. I'll just use Trump's name for it. And the Chinese have still not owned up, Brad, to releasing that deadly virus on the world. And I do believe they did it deliberately to sabotage Trump's election chances, which ultimately is proven best for our country. He's much better. He's more stronger tonight than he would have ever been in 2020 to 24. But I do believe that there is a dynamic here that is, and I'm with you, I don't think they're going to do a thing while he's in office. But what is it about them that all this blather that I heard this week, and again, I'm hoping and praying that maybe perhaps they're going to follow through, but I just get this gut that, Trump's going to be back in America here in a day or two, and we're not ultimately going to get much fruit of this, but at least we got them on paper and on the camera saying, hey, we're going to help you, America. What's your take on that? Or do you feel like we're being, is this just one thing for the camera, one thing behind the camera thing?
Well, there's certainly a certain amount of that going on, and there's stuff going on in front of the camera that makes it look good. I think they get along okay, but all smiles and shaking hands and hugs and all that. That's acting for the camera. It's not I don't think they're buds or anything like that. They're not,
Right.
kicking back and taking their shoes off, putting their feet up and drinking a beer together, none of that going on. But I think Xi's a little bit afraid of Trump, how Trump's going to react. I think that does give us an advantage in negotiations. I mean, let's face it, Trump, he does have strengths. He's got weaknesses, as we all do, but one of
Absolutely.
his strengths is negotiating. So I think he's pretty good at that. And I think Z doesn't, as you said perfectly, he just never met anybody quite like that, so he doesn't know how to handle it. So he's not a politician. He's a businessman. So Z's not a businessman. They all come out of a communist bureaucracy. So all he knows is government. He doesn't know private sector. He doesn't know what that is. They don't allow what we consider a pure private sector. They allow business to take place, but it's not really a private sector. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. There'll be some deals come out of it. If there weren't something going to be signed out of this deal,
I don't think
they
Trump
would
would
have
have went
made the
over there.
trip. Yeah, so there'll be something come out of it. Who knows what it is? Trade, I think, because Trump took along some businessmen, there'll be some sort of trade agreements. That would be my prediction.
Well, that's what I was going to add to the situation, that this trip was definitely not foreign policy, because he had tech, he had Musk there, he had all these tech giants, he had all these business people, and Rubio was there. I mean, he had the cabinet, but you could get the sense this was more economic than foreign policy. But I will say this before we get off of China. I was very pleased with the respect, at least outwardly, that they showed our president. They did not show Barack Obama that respect. They didn't show Biden that respect. Not that I care about Barack Obama or Joe Biden. They didn't deserve their respect. But it is amazing to me how they respect strength, just like the Middle East respects strength. And when Trump got off that plane, brother, they had it was like, I mean, those kids, I know people mock that. I know some of the left-wing media is mocking that tonight. But I'm going to tell you something. We got a president in office, Brad, if he's done nothing else in the second term and the first term that he had, when the old commercial, when E.F. Hutton speaks, people listen. Well, let me tell you something.
Yeah.
When Trump shows up in the country, people listen to him. They may hate his guts, but they respect him, and that's all I want him to do. I don't care if they even agree with him, but you better respect us as a country, because he's gonna not play too kindly with you if you don't. And I want a president like that. That's what I voted for, isn't it? What you voted for?
Yeah, it is. And yeah, he may be a son of a bitch, but by God, he's our son of a bitch. And he does make him nervous. No question. And I think that they did not show the respect to Biden or Obama because they did not respect Biden or Obama. And they do respect Trump, so they do show it to Trump. I think that was a genuine expression of how the Chinese view it.
I do too. I was pleased, actually, and it made me feel good for us. I mean, it made me feel good for our country. And look, I'm gonna be, I guess, a little romantic here and a little sentimental. Look, I hope ultimately that because of the respect Z has for Trump, that we can have better relations with them. Because there's a spiritual component to this, there's a political component to this, but there's a human component. Look, there are so many human rights violations that the Chinese are doing. And if Trump can get to his head and get to Xi's heart to a degree, perhaps there can be a break in all of this tension, and maybe he can have an influence on him. I don't know. Maybe that's just wishful thinking, but I just hope that some good comes of this, at least while Trump's in office. And whoever's next, God help us if it's a Dem, then, you can't really predict that. But anyway, that's just my take on that.
I hate to say it to you, Chris, on this one, but there's no chance of that happening with Z. Z is a very hardened apparatchik that's been through the system, and when he came up through the system politically, that was dangerous in those days, and there were a lot of purges and things like that took place. So people were getting killed along the way, and he was the survivor and came through it. So make no mistake, he's a hard, toughened guy that's come through some tough stuff. So touching his heart and finding a way for peace through that sort of measure, no, that's not in the cards. It's not going to happen. So that's not who he is.
So he's ruthless. He's a ruthless dictator.
Absolutely,
much.
Absolutely. And they kill people all the time.
I figured they do.
He does respect strength, and he does view Trump as strong. That I believe very firmly.
Okay.
So that does give you your best chance of peace. And by the way, that carries over everywhere in the world. You appeasement and weakness never, ever, ever create peaceful situations. That creates aggression.
Yes,
And
it
that's
does.
even in the animal kingdom. That's, all the way up and down, every creature on earth. That's basically the way it works. And we as humans are still creatures on this earth, and that's human behavior.
Yes, it is.
And
Yes, it is.
they'll do exactly the same. So Trump showing strength, it's like you said, in the Middle East, they understand strength and respect it. Whether you like him or not personally, who cares really ultimately, as long as he can do a good job. He is
Let me
not
shift.
shown the result. Go ahead,
No,
Chris. Go ahead.
no, you're fine, buddy. I just was. I wanted to shift gears to the Middle East a little bit, but before we leave Asia, did you see the story? I guess it was over the weekend about a neighbor of China to the north, North Korea, that they are rewriting their constitution. And the
Yeah,
constitution. Did you see the story where if Kim Jong Un
yeah.
dies, that they are to release doomsday nuke missiles all over the world? Do you buy that would happen with that regime, or do you think that the hardliners dies with Kim Jong Un, or there are just as many waiting behind him as this moronic family that has been nothing but brutal and probably more brutal than Z to their people?
Probably so. Yeah, I would agree with that. I believe the way it was written was that if he was killed,
Killed,
not that he
exactly. If he was
dies,
killed, okay.
uh, yeah, that they would blast off all the nukes that they have. Would they do it? Uh, that's a tough call. I think there would be hesitation. It depends. Now, I think is it his sister or his daughter? I think it's his daughter that
Daughter,
he's been
yeah.
grooming to take over. And I think it sort of depends on that daughter. If he gets killed and she were to survive, would she do that? Because in the Korean regime, you don't lift a finger if the boss man doesn't say so, because you could easily get shot for that sort of thing. In that country, there's only one men's haircut, and it's his. That tells you all you need to know. If you're that is true. There's one haircut, and that's his haircut. You gotta get your haircut just like that if you're a man. And
You're killing me,
not,
Johnson. You're killing me. Go ahead.
they're not going to do a damn thing in that country without him saying so. And if he's dead, I think everybody would be afraid to act. They're going to be going, well, should we do this? Should we not do it? So I think it would be that what that daughter does, if she's the one that takes over, survives whatever the incident is, and takes over, I think it would be her call. Now, from her perspective, you want to throw off the nukes because that's going to mean retaliation.
Yes, it is.
And that means she's going to die. Is that what she's going to do? I mean, it's a tough call. It really is a tough call to predict something like that. But my prediction would be that they probably would not blast off the nukes.
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of other factors that would play in, but I would guess not.
Okay.
But you never know.
That article caught my attention, and I knew I'd have you on soon. And it's just the craziness of this world and these dictators and these fascist communist regimes, man. I mean, they're nuts. And speaking of nutty regimes, I want to shift to the Middle East tonight because it seems that Trump is still trying to get the Iranians to the table. I asked James this Tuesday night, and this is not a criticism of President Trump, what I'm about to say to you, but I want to get your take on this. I do believe that perhaps he felt this way, maybe he didn't. I don't think anything catches Trump off guard, but I do believe that I think he's been a little surprised at the what's the word I'm looking for? The way Iran has dug in instead of coming to the table after him blasting them from smithereens. I mean, they have been decimated. And I listened to a military person this morning, and they're trying their best. They're taking these little pot shots right now, and they're like attacking a boat here, attacking a boat there. The UAE is sending rockets into there. Saudis are, they're a chameleon. One day they're for us. One day they're telling us don't use our bases, things like that. You hit them in the UAE are fighting. But Iran has been very hard-hearted, Brad. They're not budging. And I don't think that's a failure on Trump. I just think it's the nature of our enemy that we have. Do you think that he recognized that before going into this? And where do we go? Are we looking at another military conflict again? Does he reinstitute the bombings because they're just not wanting to come to the table. They offered him something the other day, and it made him laugh. He laughed it off because it was such a stupid, offer from the Iranians, knowing good and well Trump wasn't going to accept it. What's your thoughts on all that?
Um, I think Trump has had bad advice on this all the way through. It's not his element. And so I don't think he's very good at analyzing these situations. And I think his advice is coming from people who don't have a clue. I mean, he needed an old guy like myself who's done this before. I've done all that stuff before. He needs people like me around him that are saying, no, that is stupid. Don't do that.
Right.
There's just a lot of aspects of this. There's a lot of aspects of this where it's clear to me, being a professional at this sort of stuff, having done this sort of stuff, listening to what they're doing, I'm looking at this going, whoever told you to do that can't find his ass with both hands. And again, that's the God's honest truth on that one too, because they're just, okay, one thing here now, this is again, back to human nature. He starts attacking Iran. I think they honestly believed when they started going into Iran, taking out the missile sites, all this sort of stuff, that all of these protesters would suddenly rise up and create more pressure on the government.
Yes.
That is one of the dumbest, stupid ideas that I've heard in a while. It never works that way. It never works that way. All of those guys put their heads down and stand their cover. Why? Because they think the U.S. is going to do it for them. So why stand up and take the chance on the street, unarmed protesters who've been shot down by the thousands? Why go out on the street and do it now when you got the U.S. who's armed and can do it, doing it for you? That is so stupid if that was their calculation, that's what they were thinking. Those things don't happen unless you make them happen. The way to do that, and again, I wish they had a couple of old guys like me around there to tell them how to actually win this and get it done. That's when you go into those groups like the Kurds who want their own country and start putting guns and ammunition and all of that in their hands and start saying, okay, attack that way. There's the IRGC 100 miles that way. Go kill them all. And we will provide air support, by the way. It doesn't take a very good army who controls the skies and has 100% air support to win. It doesn't take a very good army. A half-assed army can do it. They would march through these places. They'd run out of gas before they could, before they'd get stopped someplace. So you could get them supplied, and they just would march through that country. Now, I can tell you why they didn't do that. They didn't do that because of Turkey. They don't want to piss off Turkey because about half of Turkey is where Kurds live. And there's Kurds in Iraq and Kurds in Iran. The Kurds are the single largest ethnic group in the world that doesn't have their own country.
That's interesting.
That is a real danger to Turkey. So that's why that's not happening. Everybody's afraid to do that with the Kurds. Well, we did it in Iraq, and it worked out really well. Those are good partners for us. I personally, again, would say, well, if you cut Turkey in half, do we really care? If they don't like it, if that's ultimately what's going to happen out of this. But that's what it would take. You have to go in, find these groups, provide them, make sure they have some leadership and planning and equipment and logistics and so on, and just turn them loose and give them air support. And if you do that sort of thing, they're going to walk through that country. Then you'd put pressure on the regime. They would see it coming at that point, and then you'd have the strength to negotiate. Right now, I think some of the criticism of what Trump is doing is valid because he has not knocked them out. And you cannot make the argument that they're knocked out because they are still putting up resistance. They're doing things. They're firing missiles. They attacked UAE and burned an oil field, a tank on an oil field, I believe is what they hit. A big fire at any rate. And UAE struck back, by the way.
Yes, they did.
And you just can't say that they're knocked out. Now, they didn't go into it trying to do that. Which again, you need the old guy sitting on the other side of the table going, oh my God, you guys who told you that was a good idea? Go in and kill all the IRGC, all the missile bases, all the drones, everything that you get that you can find, take it out. And, just draw the map, make up the list, give it to the military and go, tell me when you're done. And you'll get these ground troops out there and going, and that's how you win these wars. But they're not trying to win. What they're trying to do is force peace, but that's not going to work. That will never work.
I totally agree.
Those guys are never, ever, ever, ever going to negotiate with you honestly. They'll never do it because they are perfectly willing to die for what they're doing, and or at least a lot of the people are, and they just that's not their belief system. Their belief system is that, we're the great Satan, we need to be destroyed, Israel needs to be wiped off the face of the earth, and they're willing to die to get that done. So what are you going to do to change their mind on that? Well, there's not a damn thing you can do. So you got to get rid of them.
I'll
That's
agree.
the only way forward. And I don't know, like I said, whoever's given Trump his advice led Trump into a quagmire, and he's not getting out of it. He's not handling the political things. He's not going to Congress to get approval. He's just not doing any of the stuff he has to do to fix this. He's not putting enough pressure on them. Sitting back right now, that's not where you negotiate from strength. Go pound them. Go, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to take out all the electrical grids. That way, these missile bases, they don't have the equipment to move around missiles and drones and charge the batteries and do all the things they need to do. You got to go take it out.
I think you're making an outstanding, excellent point, and I mean that. And I was sitting here thinking as you were talking, is that not what's been our Achilles heel in this country, though? Every time that we try to go into conflicts like this, that we never fight to win. I felt like that's what we did in Iraq. I felt like that's what we did in Vietnam. And you look at even Gulf War One, Bush Senior, Brad, had a chance. He had a chance for regime change. And the way I look at this, if we're going to get the Middle East muddy, if we're going to get our hands in this, and we're going in to do what we're doing, stop playing patty cake with these killers. Look, we could have helped Israel remove Hamas in 2 weeks. We sit back over here and we complain about a 2.5 year war that Israel has taken to blow out Hamas. All she needed was some help from the international community. Hamas could be gone in 3 freaking days, just like that. The Hezbollah terrorist group, it's not like they're a mighty army. They're a punk terrorist group. ISIS is a punk terrorist group. Destroy them. Trump had the idea the first term. Look, he showed no mercy to ISIS. He cleaned them out. And if you're going to do this, I told James this Tuesday night. I'm all in of the reason why he's doing it, but I want to see us do it right, and I don't want us to keep playing patty cake, because you're hitting on something that I think is at the deepest root of our hearts out here in this country. I think we are beginning to see it, that we're not fighting to win. And I don't care how many days he delays this ceasefire and says, well, we're going to push the ceasefire back another 90 days or this and that and the other. And look, you hit the nail on the head. We're not dealing with a normal situation in Iran. We're dealing with killers, suicide-minded people. They will go to their grave to destroy America and to destroy Israel. They don't care. They don't care. Brad, they've killed 42,000 of their people. And we're going to have to play tough. And I don't know if we got the guts. I don't think we got the porcelain, the steel in our soul to do it. We better, because this is going to wind up worse than Vietnam to me if we're not careful.
Yeah, different circumstances in that sense for as far as the war goes, but yeah, the outcome I think is on its way to being sort of a Vietnam-ish sort of situation, because he's got himself halfway in and isn't seeming willing to go in to finish it off, but can't back out either.
Right.
If he just packs up and goes home, it's worse than ever. It's going to be much, much worse. So somebody's got to put their big boy pants on in this outfit and just say, okay, it's time to finish this. We're going to have to go in and get this done. And I think they need to wait for the next big leadership meeting and turn that leadership meeting into a gigantic smoking hole in the ground. And that's going to be a big step forward. Then go to all the IRGC bases, make sure they have no electricity and water, and destroy those bases again. Turn them into a gigantic smoking hole in the ground. I have discovered in my lifetime that it's very, very, very rare. It's almost impossible to have your problems come from a smoking hole in the ground. That smoking hole in the ground has solved those problems, and they're gone. So converting a problem to smoking hole in the ground is a good thing. This is the way these things get solved. It doesn't go the other way.
I've gotten so many T-shirt ideas from you tonight. But I think that's the best one, that there is nothing coming from a smoking hole in the ground, brother. I'm just telling you, man. I'm just saying that there's nothing. Brad Johnson has said, there's nothing that comes from a smoking hole in the ground. There's no threat. And look, we have a lot of sympathy, but I think you hit on something else, and then I'm going to turn over to some domestic issues with you. I think I was shocked to some degree that the people, while this was going on, because right before this happened, the people were rising up. Iran started slaughtering the populace, 42,000 of them. They had momentum. And it seems that when this war started, it just stopped. And you're right. Maybe they were scared. Maybe they knew they couldn't fight this regime. But Brad, this regime has been weakened now, and the people can rise up and do something about it. Iran's got to take control of their country. The people have got to decide what they want. It's not America's job to fix this for them, because see, when America leaves, it's the same thing as Iraq. That was Bush Jr.'s problem. He tried to establish an American caliphate in the middle of a Middle East place that does not want American democracy. They don't want American type values. This is just the Middle East. They don't want that. But Iran has got to decide, okay, this is what we want long term. And I don't think they understand. I don't think they know what they want long term. And all that means is more bad news for us, because that means we're just going to have to keep blowing stuff up over there, and I don't think that ends good for either party.
It's one of the things out of the left you always hear, oh, you're not being, culturally sensitive and all that stuff, and yet they're the ones that are always demanding, oh, we have to turn this into a democracy, but that's not how the world works, especially out of tribal cultures that are built on tribal traditions. That's not a democracy type of culture. And just look back. What is it that worked in Iran before that was stable and peaceful and good economy and all that? It was the Shah.
The
The Shah of Iran. That was the shining period of Iran since ancient Persian times. And that was a strong man in charge. There was one guy in charge who was basically the king, the Shah of Iran. And they had to they killed people because they were trying to keep the peace and stability. And 51% of all the doctors in the country of Iran were women, and now it's zero. That's and yet the left doesn't mind that. They're supposed to be for women. They're not. They're anti-women. And take a look with Saudi Arabia. That could be craziness there too, but it's peaceful. Why? Because you got the crown prince, one guy in charge, and he's willing to make sure that he stays in charge. It's not. You're never going to have a guy who's a dictator in a country who's perfect, because a lot of what you have to do to stay in control isn't pretty. That's a fact of life. But what is the alternative that's better for those countries? And there isn't one. So it's Jordan, same thing. Very stable, peaceful country and a pretty damn good ally of the United States for a lot of stuff. You got one guy who's the king who's in charge of that country. And make no mistakes. His security forces take care of business to make sure that he stays in charge. So those places are all peaceful and stable and relatively good. Iran historically with the Shah, that's the solution for those areas. If you could get a decent guy in every one of those, and I'm not talking about Saddam Hussein, but the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, the king of Jordan especially. If you could find another half a dozen guys more or less like him to put in charge of these countries, pick somebody out of that to back, you'd have a lot more peace in that region. But you got to take care of things like the bad apples that are out there that are spoiling everything, like Iran. And we just don't. I honest to God do not understand why we don't make the point more vehemently out there. Like, for example, Australia just canceled a Trump Tower that was going to be put in there. The boys are working on it. It wasn't Trump himself, but the boys were putting it in there. It was going to be a Trump Tower, the tallest building on the Gold Coast. The tallest building in Australia on the Gold Coast was where the construction was going to be, and it was being a Trump hotel and all kinds of stuff in there, a luxury hotel. And it got canceled. Why? Because the Australian people are pissed at Trump. Well, Australian citizens have been killed by Hamas and by Hezbollah and by Iran, and their soldiers have been killed by those guys. Why does nobody point that out? I would say to Australia, I don't have the list of names of the Australians that have been killed, but I would do something in Australia on the news right now and say, look, you guys, I understand you're pissed at Trump because of what's going on in Iran, but what's he trying to do? He's trying to save more people like these guys from being killed. because that's what they do. We've had way more killed than you have, but look about this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. What about their families? What about these people? What about these Australian citizens that those guys murdered? What about them? They were innocent. They didn't do anything wrong. So great. You hate Trump. Okay, fine. But he's trying to save your ass from a lot more murder. So is he that bad, really? Orange Man bad only goes so far. You got to start to look at some of what he's trying to do. But I would say Trump, while he's a very interesting public speaker and riveting and all of that to listen to, he just doesn't explain this stuff very well. He doesn't hit to the heart of the matter of why you're doing this. And that is, over the last 40 or 50 years, how many people have the Iranians killed directly or through their surrogates?
A lot,
Say
Brad.
that.
A lot.
There's hundreds of thousands of people. Most of them were innocent. Why not point that out? Why not? Why aren't you? What the hell is the logic pattern that they're going through? Why they say what they say, which is, not much. They just don't say that much about it. And they don't fight back on stuff like Australia. I'd point that out. Great. You don't want it there. I'm not going to build it. That was 1,000 Australian jobs down the toilet. Great. But, hey, what's really going on here, too, is I'm helping to fight your enemies as well.
Well, that's good. Cleo's in the house. She's from down under, one of our moderators. I'm sure she's saying amen to that. And she lives down there. And there is a lot of Trump derangement syndrome in Australia. There is. And the government especially. Listen, I want to, and you're making a good point. I agree with everything you're saying because this is a worldwide issue, Brad. It is not just relegated to Israel and America. This is a worldwide problem. And that's another thing that we're not getting any help from our allies over this. And this is what frustrates me with our allies. If they were to come to our side and help us with this, it would not be taken but a week or two. We could get this fixed. If Israel would have had the world helping her eradicate these terrorist groups that you just described, killing innocent people all over this world, Israel wouldn't have had to have a contracted 1.5 year war and then get accused of genocide, which she wasn't doing. She was defending herself. And it's a well said statement. Listen, 15 minutes or so, I want to ask you about something that happened yesterday with Tulsi Gabbard. And I know you're a former CIA operative, and she's the national security NSA head. But it seemed like that there were some CIA people that basically came into her office, took some files of the JFK assassination and some other highly classified documents that evidently, I don't know if she was not releasing them on purpose, but they grabbed these documents. What can you tell us about that tonight? What's your thoughts on all that? Is Gabbard, what's always been your thought about Tulsi Gabbard being in that role? Because that's always been one of those square pegs in a round hole fits to me. And I never have understood why she was chosen. I mean, I like Tulsi. I don't trust her. I mean, she was very supportive of President Trump in the 24 election. And I'm sure that's why she got a cabinet position. But what's your thoughts on her? And what side is right and what side is wrong on this? And why would they want these files out there all of a sudden? I don't know if she's been protecting them or she's been waiting for Trump to he already said to release everything, and she's been sort of slow walking that.
I wasn't familiar with this. I didn't know that the agency had been reported to have gone into her office to take out files. So I don't know the details of this at all. I will say I agree with you. I don't find her a hugely impressive person. I don't think that she's really capable of handling the position that she's in there, the cabinet position. But there's no question she was a big support to President Trump, helped him quite a little bit, and I think she cashed in on it to get the position. Yeah, again, no deep criticism of her personally. It's just that that's not her background, so she's not really prepared to do it. I'm sure she's absorbing some. If the CIA went into somebody's office like that to take documents back, that would mean that those were originally CIA documents. If it was something else where there was any sort of legal aspect to it, then it would have been the FBI that would have gone in and done that. So that would imply to me, not knowing anything about this case, but that would imply to me that the origin of those documents would have been CIA, which she would be entitled to have all those things. She has the clearance for all of that. So it's not a clearance issue, which is why it wasn't the FBI. So it's probably ownership of those. But she's entitled to have those. So I don't know. That would be a very, very odd situation to have the CIA go in and take documents against her will out of her
Yeah.
office.
Well, let me just say this while you're saying that it's being reported. I wanted to find the article in this in Gateway Pundit tonight. Actually, she has denied that the CIA was behind this. Her spokesman tonight says that the CIA, she denies that the CIA raided her office of the DNI and took files relating to the JFK assassination and the mind control MK Ultra program. Um, Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and she is she's one of those hotheads down in Florida, and House Oversight Committee chairman, had sent a letter to the CIA demanding that all existing and future records related to the taken items be preserved. And But Gabbard is out there tonight saying that the CIA did not even raid her office. So that's one of those stories we will be following. I'm like you. It just sounded strange that the CIA would do that. That just didn't fall under that jurisdiction, would it? Over a bunch of files over MK Ultra and JFK. JFK's been dead for 60 years, man. I mean, I just say, why can't we just move on? JFK's dead, okay? JFK is dead.
He's still
dead.
Yeah,
and JFK Jr. is too, for the Q people. I'm sorry. JFK Jr. is dead. Just say it.
The MK Ultra, the CIA probably has a hook or two into that. The JFK, definitely not. They wouldn't have had anything, much to do with that. They were in fact blamed by some people for the assassination. But I think it was. You and I talked about this a long time ago in one of our interviews, but I think that it's has become more clear. But it's what I've sort of argued all along, that this was tied back to his assassination was tied back to the mafia, and
right.
It was basically because of the way that Kennedy won the election, and he won the election by paying off those guys and letting them bring in all the unions and people like that the mafia had control over and influence over, to make sure that he swung a couple of critical voting states to his side to win. If it had not been for the mafia, Kennedy would not have won. And as we all know, JFK's father came out of the mafia. Their family money was made from the mafia, so they had a lot of, they were running booze during the Prohibition and things like that. So they had many connections into that. And Teddy Kennedy was, according to the Dark Side of Camelot books and things like that, he was the bag man that would carry the money around and deliver it and things like that. And so it was one of those things that as soon as he won, he brought in his brother, Robert, who became the attorney general. And what did he do? He went after the mafia.
Yes, he did.
So they felt betrayed. They would have gone into this thinking, yeah, we'll help you win, and we're friends, right? And we have the same background and all of that. So there are ties here between us. And I think Kennedy was afraid of that, and that was why he turned his brother loose on the mafia to go take him out. And I think the mafia are the ones that shot him. And if you remember, what's the name of the guy that got arrested for that?
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald. What did Lee Harvey Oswald say? He was killed fairly quickly, but what did he say? He said, "I'm a dupe."
Yeah.
Well, take that at face value. Yeah, he probably was a dupe. The mafia probably, lured him into that place, had him set up to do some stuff. They were using him, and then the guy that killed Oswald was a mafia guy too, who was dying of cancer.
Yes.
So it's all the pieces sort of fit together that way. I think all the arguments are that it was secretly the CIA because of the Bay of Pigs and all that stuff. I think that's all nonsense.
Yeah.
That's just made up.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Hey, a couple of quick questions. We got you about 9 more minutes. These are rapid fire questions. Number one, there have been a couple of internal Trump administration officials that have been let go and fired. What is going on with these traitors in our government, Brad, that they feel like that they can subvert the president? And they're called, like James O'Keefe called a guy that he's part of one of the budget offices out there, and he was literally bragging, "We've got to destroy Trump. We've got to get Trump." Does this go back to Trump's are they? I know you can't vet somebody 100%. I don't care how much you vet them. You don't know what they're up to until they get into office and start showing their colors. But do you think there's a failure in that, or do you think we've just got a bunch of scumbags out there that are just bad people and they don't care and they're going to subvert this government and try to, no matter how much you vet them and how much you believe that they're on your side? Because there's nothing worse to me than a betrayer, somebody that is like one way to you openly, and then they get in your circle and stick a knife up your back. There's no worse person than that, in my opinion, and that seems to be going on a lot in Trump's inner circle. And and I've witnessed this with the podcasters. These people that were, all Trump, Trump, Trump. They made their fortune. They made their fame by being pro-Trump, pro-America, pro-this, and now they've turned out to be just a bunch of scumbag Islamists. And I look at Marjorie Taylor Greene, basically drinking margaritas on that island in Costa Rica, a sellout, and now she's fled Georgia, scared to death of Trump and insinuating that he's caused her to have to flee for her life, which is a bunch of crap. But what is it about our government right now that we can't trust people from betraying the president, man, betraying all of us?
Two things on that. One, those guys don't view themselves as traitors. What they view themselves as patriots. They believe that what they're doing is the morally correct thing. They think that Trump is the screwball, and that by acting against Trump, they're acting in the best interest of the United States. So that's their perspective of themselves. And I guess, ultimately it's a perspective. I view myself as an ardent patriot, and big supporter of the CIA. So I think the CIA has made a lot of stupendous errors in judgment and things like that, made a lot of mistakes, but I'm not anti-CIA. I want them to be bigger and better and stronger. Patriot. So, it's just, I think most of those guys that you're talking about, the traitors, would probably view me as, the screwball traitor or whatever, that's something bad. Where it's just the same way I view them, you view them.
Right.
Trump, that's this weakness that you and I have talked about Trump many, many times. And that is, he is not good at picking people. He is, steadfastly out there insisting on people having personal loyalty to him. That is wrong. That is not the way you pick these people, because it's just the type of character that is a sycophant is not the type of character that has the wherewithal to stand up and do what's right. And what you need are people like me. I would not swear my loyalty to Trump personally, but I share the ideals of getting the things done. And so I would be the guy, in the room saying, when they're talking about going into Iran, going, nah, no, 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 no. None of you guys have ever done this before. I have. Now shut up and learn from the master, so you'll find out how to win this. And next time it comes up, you'll know what to do. That he needs guys like that, but that's not who he has. That's not who he surrounds himself with. So this is one of his mistakes as well. So you have that combination of things, and you have these guys that swear this personal loyalty, and so they're kind of digging around looking for that. But that means you're recruiting the wrong people, because it's very easy to stand up and say, oh yeah, I'm loyal to Trump forever to the very end, man. That's easy to say. Well, how do you prove that? Well, just like you said, you never know what's in somebody's heart, so you're just never going to know. That's why he gets all those traitors in. If he went out and picked people like me, I've got decades of history doing these things and the right things for the right reasons. That's who you pick, because they're going to continue to do that because they believe in it, and they would view you as an ally. That's who you need to pick. Allies, not people who stick their nose in your rear end. That's not the guy you need.
No, I get your point, and I think it's well taken. Final question: the COVID hearer yesterday, the whistleblower, was a CIA person, and basically was trying to tell the world what I think we all believe, that China was behind the China flu, the Walmart flu, the Walmart virus. It was interesting to me that no Democrats showed up to listen to it. This bunch of losers, man. Nobody was there but Republicans to listen to this man yesterday. And why is it that, I swear, this is why we hate politicians, Brad. This is why we hate politicians in this country. Look, I've just got a feeling. I've always had this thing about these hearings. I know that a lot of these hearings are for that camera and for dramatics and theatrics, and the more sensational it is, the more people are going to post it on Facebook, post it on X, post it all over the place, and it's going to get a lot of traction. But we got common sense in this nation. I hope we do. I think that may be at a premium these days, but people still have a common sense view of the world. They can pick and decide what they want to believe. If you don't want to believe the guy, then you ain't got to believe him. If you do believe him, you can believe him. It's what makes our country so great. But it is disrespectful to me that these same Democrats that were not there yesterday were the ones that imposed the mandates on all of us in 2020 and 2021, and they basically lied. Fauci lied. The Democrat Party lied. Joe Biden lied. The Health and Human Services Department lied. Fauci was basically bragging on tape that he was going to put people out of work if they didn't take the mandate or the vaccine. If they didn't, you got a Texas judge tonight that has basically mandated masks to be worn in her courtroom now again. And the Texas Supreme Court tonight has given her till tomorrow and basically told her, you knock that crap off or we're going to come down and we're going to deal with you. This is how nutty these people are, but yet they'll sycophants. They're such sycophants, they will not even sit there and listen. You ain't got to believe him, but they won't even listen to any theory that debunks all of their tyrannical theory that they put on us in a year. I know we've got to let you go. 5 minutes on that. What's your thoughts on that? Because look, I do not believe for 1 second, not for 1 second, that this was not calculated by the Chinese government. And the Dems saw a chance, Joe Biden saw a chance, the whole media saw a chance to use it to weaponize it against Trump and to weaponize it against his followers and weaponize it against this nation that loves freedom. I believe that to this day, and I'll believe it till the day I die.
That stuff is true. I mean, there's no question it was taken advantage to weaponize. And, basically, about this time of the year before elections, every year it happens. Right now, we're
That's
having
exactly
the
right.
hantavirus and stuff. I mean, it always comes up. Why? Because it makes people turn to the government. And if you're turning to the government, that means you're voting Democrat because Democrats are the big government guys. So it's something that they need politically. That's why they're not going to go sit in these hearings because they don't want that. They don't. That way they can also deny it. They can say, "Well, I never heard that." Well, I came up with this meeting. Well, I wasn't at that meeting, so I don't know. I can't speak to that. But what I can tell you is blah, 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 blah. But yeah, you're right. It's one of the reasons why we all hate politicians because they're so full of hooey. All of them are. I've said this to many times to many people, including some very senior politicians. What I've said is that 90% of Democrats are complete scumbags. And I'm talking about congressmen and senators. And about 50% of Republicans are complete scumbags. And every single time I've said that to somebody, they'll look at me and go, "Yeah, that's about right." And so if they're roughly the same size, that and you add all that up, that means about 3/4 of Congress is scumbags. And that's I think that's the honest to God truth. Those guys are scumbags. All they're interested in is filling their campaign coffers, and they're probably crying in their beer at night that they no longer have public taxpayer funds to pay off their sexual abuse cases and stuff like that. And
It's true.
they're just and
It's
the people
true.
who run, I've dealt a lot with that and had some contacts with campaigns and the people that are running for those offices are not the right people. And when they get in and stay, like take Jerry Nadler. I mean, he's just a perfect example. Guy's a moron. Guy's a stupid man, and he got in based on pure luck. The guy that was going to win, died of a heart attack like a month or two before the election, and he was the only guy left standing they could throw into the breach. And so he got elected and stayed elected and has been there. And the guy's an idiot, and he'll just do what he's told and comes up with all these policies he doesn't understand. I mean, you remember the Democrat out of the state of Georgia? I believe it was Representative Johnson out of Georgia, who was afraid that if we were going to take aid to, I don't know, whatever the island was, Puerto Rico or some island that had a storm, he was afraid it was going to tip over. He thought the island would tip over. I mean, idiots, these guys get in there and stay, and they don't have any other opportunities. They don't have any place else to go, so they get into these offices and stay forever. And then we have the American public voting them in again. And then you have people, even among our conservatives, say, oh, well, no, we need these people to stay because we need that expertise. I'm sorry, I've been on the Hill. I know a lot more of these people than you do. What expertise? There's no expertise there. You maybe get the occasional guy like, Rand Paul was a doctor. He knows some stuff about medical things. There's no question. But expertise? Are you joking?
Yeah.
I've forgotten more than 90% of those guys will ever know in their life. That's the God's honest truth again. We've had a lot of 3 or 4 God's honest truths tonight here.
All right. I will start working on your spy music starting tonight. And we've got a, what do you call it? The summer is among us. The summer breeze, as Frank Sinatra used to sing, the summer breeze. So when the summer breeze hits me, I'll be inspired and I'll find you a spy song. And because I don't want my tab to keep running up, and you do know where I live, so I don't want Brad Johnson.
And there's a major gas line running right under your house, Chris. I got that. Be careful, my friend.
No, but it's been good stuff tonight. I appreciate you. I'm going to let you go and get off this show and say goodnight to these folks. But listen, we're going to have you back on again in a few weeks. One quick 30-second answer: scale of 1 to 10, the Comey situation. Does Comey escape this? 10 being likely he gets away with it. 1 that there could be a chance. What's your on his fate? Is he going to get indicted? I know he's been indicted twice. Do you think that they're going to really see this through the end on him?
This is one of the more stupid indictments that's out there. There's zero chance that Comey's going to be convicted of this crime.
Okay.
The crime that he did is when he went out on the beach and used those seashells or rocks, whatever he had, he put 86-47. And, they're saying, okay, well, that's a threat to murder. The case that they have to prove in court is that Comey was in immediate danger and planned to go murder the president of the United States. That the case that they have filed against him is that by writing this 86-47 in the sand out there, that was an immediate threat that he or immediate promise or plan to go murder the president. And did he then go jump in his car with his gun and rush over to the White House to get into the Oval Office to shoot the president? No,
he didn't.
He walked down the beach. That's the standard of proof that's required for that case. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, I believe it's reasonable doubt, that he was in immediate danger of going to murder the president based on that threat.
Okay.
Well, I don't think you can even prove it's a threat. I think 86 is a term that came out of the restaurant business where you are getting rid of items off the menu that don't sell well. So he's saying, get rid of the president. But I think I think it would be very hard to argue that that's anything other than a political commentary sort of thing. He didn't like the president. So the odds, and you can take this to the bank. I'm sorry. I think Comey should go to jail for a lot of things, but this isn't one of them. And the chances of him getting convicted, I guarantee you, are 0. Okay. Not going to happen.
That's why we pay you the big bucks to come on here and give you your opinion. Until next time, Mr. Johnson, good stuff tonight. Thank you so much for being with me, man. God bless you, and have a great weekend and a great happy Memorial Day to you, and our prayers for you and your family. And we're thanking you for being with us tonight on the Mac Files again, my friend. Have a good night.
All right, Chris, you take care. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Brad Johnson, everybody. Put some fire in that house for him. That's my dear buddy, and he's such a good guy. And there I am. And it's good to see everybody tonight. Now, we're not going to keep you longer because we have got a fantastic young man coming up here tonight at 10 o'clock. If you enjoyed Brad, put some fire in that house for me tonight. I'm going to address some of the questions in the house here in just a second. But if you enjoyed Brad, there's Pat and Deb Dolan. Good to see you. And let's see here. Pat and Deb, you say that you hope he never will be convicted. It's laughable. I'm not saying it's laughable, but I don't think he's going to get convicted. But we'll see. Good to see Brad. Brad's in the house. Brad, it was a pleasure, as always, to us to have you tonight, buddy. I appreciate you much. I really do. Janice Warwick's statement, I want to read. She says, JFK still relevant because it says who the CIA always has been. JFK is still popular. Nixon was terrible. Janice, I'm going to slightly disagree with you. I think that, I think Brad has established that that it likely was the mob that was behind this, Lee Harvey Oswald. And again, people can have opinion, and everybody's welcome to believe what they want to believe about it, and people have. I mean, the guy's been dead. I just think that we have been so consumed with this, and at some point it's time to move on from it. I don't think it's relevant anymore. Look, Brad Johnson is one of the most finest individuals I know on this earth. He's a man of character and integrity. He has served his country for nearly 30 years trying to protect this nation from those overseas. And I'm going to just say this about the three-letter agencies, because I hear all these bad things about the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, the DNI, the FBI, and people demonize law enforcement, and they're always the bad guys. I need to remind you tonight, folks, that we live in an evil world, and there are bad hombres, bad nations, bad characters, bad forces in this world that would destroy and kill every single one of you listening to me tonight, including my family and your family. They wouldn't blink an eye doing it. And when you are fighting that, when you are fighting those kind of forces, I hate to tell you, what we're experiencing in Iran should illustrate this to us. Look, I don't think Trump has taken any pleasure in having to bomb the you-know-what out of this regime, and no more than Israel was wanting to go into Gaza and have to do what they had to do, but they were attacked by some forces that wanted them destroyed. Look, World War II, there were things that we did as a nation in World War II. When war is fought and there's a war going on, you have to fight the war to win it. And sometimes when you have to fight a war to win it, you have to use methods that most people would say, well, I wish we wouldn't have to do that. Well, I don't think anybody wants to have to do that. But there's some things that you just have to do and have to realize that you're fighting evil. And, I'll go back to Romans 13. They that execute the sword against evil do not execute it in vain. In vain. We are living in an evil world. I wish we wasn't. I wish this world was Pollyanna, Mary Poppins. The hills are alive with the sound of music, and we were all getting along, and nobody wanted anybody dead, and nobody wanted our nation to go away, and nobody wanted Israel to go away, and the hate and the murder and the division and all these things. I wish we were living in a different world than we are right now, but we're not. And people like Brad Johnson, I have so much respect for. I have respect for James Akers, Eric Karen. They were all federal agents that have stood face to face, straight up in the face of this evil, and done what they needed to do to protect our nation. And I don't share the same demonization of these three-letter agencies. Have these agencies done things that probably they could have done better? Oh, yeah. I'm sure Brad would even tell you that. But their job is intelligence. Their job is to put intelligence in the hands of people that make those decisions. The rank and file CIA members, you're not going to find any better group of people, folks, because they're out there protecting our land. Now, if we saw them in action, would we cringe and maybe choke on our cereal watching them operate? I probably would. I'm not trying to say that everything that goes on under the guise of the CIA is something that I would want my family and my kids to be exposed to. I wouldn't. But I'm grateful it's them doing it that we can be safe. And I don't demonize them. Your thoughts on Nixon? I don't think Nixon was that bad a president. I think Nixon was a much better president than history has proven and claimed of him, I'll at least say. His problem was those tapes. His Watergate legacy, that's when you say Nixon, that's what people think about as Watergate. But Nixon was actually the first president that went to the Chinese and stood the Chinese down. Back in the 1970s, he went to that communist country to try to open up dialogue between the two nations. And this is just my opinion. My opinion. I believe we would have had a greater Cold War with China than we've had. The issues with China have always been there, but they've been exacerbated because of weak leadership in this country over the last 20 years. And we already were fighting a Cold War with Russia, but Nixon's efforts, I believe, stayed some of that. And Janice, I'm not taking issue with your comment. I understand what you're saying. To some people, it is relevant. To some people, JFK is relevant. And to those people, then those files need to be released. I'm okay with her releasing it. I don't think we're going to find out anything more than we already know. I just don't. And I may be wrong. And you know Chris. If Chris is wrong, Chris will bring Brad Johnson back on here and we'll talk about what's in those files. And I'll say, well, I missed that one by a mile. Because Chris misses things by a mile sometimes. Chris misses things by 10 miles sometimes. But anyway. Janice, you're saying Dulles and Prescott Bush at an earlier CIA. Look, I don't want to rehash the Kennedy assassination. I get it. That's not my point. And again, I understand where you're coming from. It doesn't matter. It happened 60. Now we're 2026. He was assassinated in 62, was it? So we're talking 64 years. This has been gone and happened. We can't replay it. And the Q people took the son's death. They made this their mantra that JFK Jr. is alive. And there are people out there in this world tonight that still believe that. They still believe that. He's not. And ultimately, what does it matter if we find out what happened to JFK? The people that you're mentioning are likely never going to face any. If there was any kind of shenanigans, look, we can't even convict an FBI director that's guilty of lying and basically lying under oath about Hillary Clinton, and we can't convict Anthony Fauci of a ham sandwich. And Fauci's done far more to this country, I think, than anything that the people that were behind the JFK thing did. I don't even care at that point. What I do care is watching our freedoms being taken from us by an Islamic uprising in this nation that is attacking our Constitution, and communists within our government and fascists in our government. That's what makes me upset. That's what makes me upset. That's all I'm saying. And again, you're welcome to your opinion, dear. It's good to see you tonight. Pat and Deb, y'all are saying that Comey, your comment about Comey, saying that he'll never be convicted. I don't disagree with that. You say if Trump goes in hard on Iran, what do you think China will do? I don't think he's concerned about China. I think Brad Johnson said it right tonight. Look, China understands strength. They understand strength. I don't know if you remember this. When he bombed Syria in 2018, Z was over here that night, and they had just met for the first time, him and Xi. James calls him Xi. Z is X-I. I call him Z. X-Z. Xi. Whatever his name is. The Chinese dictator. I never will forget the scene, and I can almost see it in my mind. I don't know if they actually had the scene, but they say that they were eating dinner the night that Trump bombed Syria, and he leaned over. He leaned over while Z was eating the Chinese egg roll. Trump said, just to let you know, the bombs are falling on Damascus tonight. And they say that Z almost choked on that egg roll. I don't think Trump worries too much about China. I just don't. I don't think China's figuring into this. I think Trump recognizes that we have got to have a dialogue with them. And you see, I think Trump respects strength. I think Trump does not want America. He wants to make our nation what it needs to be. He can't make every other nation what he wants it to be, no more than any other president has tried to do. I think Trump's trying to hold up on Iran, Pat, because of the people. I do. I think that he is very concerned that if they start dropping them bombs again, look, the power plants and the infrastructure of Iran, if you start destroying that and people lose power, it's not just the regime that's going to be basically crippled. It'll be people will be without electricity in that nation, and I think that is weighing on him. But I think Brad made some great points tonight about this. Look, if we were going to get involved in it, we needed to get involved all the way. We don't need to be playing patty cake with them. And, you got to go do what you got to do. It's going to be a mess either way. But we can't keep letting them attack our ships and holding the Strait of Hormuz hostage because we're all paying $6 to $10 a gallon of gas because of it. And because the oil flow is not what it needs to be right now, and that's why your gas prices are going crazy. I do believe that there's a possibility that we can get some good trade deals for the trade deals that Trump he says he made with China are going to hold. Let's hope. Let's hope. I'm pushing. I'm praying for my president. I'm just praying that I think Brad's right. The right people to get in his ear and guide him right now. That's my only hope. I don't think it's China that's holding him up. I think it's the Iranian people. I think that he's concerned that once he does this, it's not going to be good for them. And I may be wrong about that. You may be right, so I don't know. But that's just my take on it. That is just my take. Okay. Got anything else? Good to see everybody tonight. Grant says, which war ends first, Ukraine, Russia, or Iran? Grant, I would put my money on Iran. I think the Ukrainians and the Russians want to kill each other. You can't stop them. Trump's trying his best to stop that war, but you got two nations that are bent on destruction. I would put my money on Iran. I think the situation with Iran will be done by July the 4th. I think somebody was in there last night, maybe been you, or somebody said something Tuesday night that y'all felt like it would be over by the 4th of July. And I tend to hope that and believe that. We'll see. We'll see. I don't think the Ukraine-Russia war is going to be ending, not in the near future. It may be this year, later this year. Maybe Trump can find some common sense in the two men, Zelensky and Putin, but don't count on it. Don't count on it. That's just my take, too. All righty. I'm done for the first half hour. We got a brand new guest coming up here. Magdalene Rose has got us a young kid, 40-year-old preacher. And we're going to sort of shift the discussion tonight on this Thursday night from the wars and Iran and CIA intelligence and who killed JFK if aliens exist. I'm sorry. We live in such a messed up world right now. I just read the headlines every day, and I do this right here. That's why I have to get glasses, because I have to make sure I'm reading what I'm reading. But we're going to shift. It's going to be much more positive at 10 o'clock tonight. But Pastor Dan Carr is going to be a first-time guest. And he's asked me to do Zoom with us. So I got to be on my best behavior. But he's going to be on at 10. We're going to talk about the rededication of the nation and this move of faith among young people. And we'll see. We'll see how he does tonight. And thanks to Magdalene. She's going to be with us next week. Her baby's not doing well this week, so pray for her and her baby. But we're not done yet tonight. And we'll talk about some other things with you tonight. We'll take your questions. And folks, again, my opinions are mine and yours are yours. We don't fault you for having different opinions that we've got. We love you. And I just... I'm just the kind of person, I'm sort of ready to move on from a lot of this stuff that the country is hanging on to, neighbor. We got much more pressing dangers. We just do. We've got much more pressing dangers than we're facing inwardly right now than to keep demonizing the people that are trying to protect us from those dangers. And I don't know if we quite understand. I don't understand it. I'll be the first to tell you. Maybe I don't. The depth of the danger that we're in from this communist takeover of America and this Islamic takeover of America. It's not good. And these forces of darkness are deep. And sometimes, as I said, the forces of right have got to fight in a way to to get rid of these forces of darkness is not going to be pretty. It's not ever going to be clean. It's not going to be tidy. And it's just not going to be sanitized. And no matter how we want it to be, it just can't be. But I remind you tonight that in God's sight, you say, well, how did God feel about this? I'll tell you how God feels about this. The forces that stand up against evil are ordained by God to do so. They're ordained by God. That's why we have government. That's why we have government, is to stand against evil in this world and to recognize it and to rid the world of it as much as it can, even though until Jesus Christ comes back, it's never going to be rid of it all. The problem tonight with our world is the governments of this world are embracing the same evil that is seeking to destroy it. That's our bigger problem. And I'll let you go on that. God bless you. God bless your families. God bless this great nation of America. My dear buddy Brad Johnson was on fire. He had me laughing tonight. He has that way about him. He was in rare form tonight. He was in rare form tonight, but he's my friend, and I'm grateful I know him, and I'm grateful that he was on our show tonight. If you were, put some fire in that house. I'll see you back here at 10 o'clock with Mr. Pastor Dan Carr. It's going to be a good guest. I'm looking forward to meeting him, and I'm sure you will too. See you later.